Thank you. Next question has 3 parts to it. Actually, 4 parts. So be ready to write. During the past 5 years or so, many citizens have been elected to town or school district offices only to resign before completing the elected term. So the parts are: describe the circumstances where you believe it is appropriate to resign prematurely. Describe the consideration you would make when considering whether to formally accept or formally reject a resignation by an official who must tender the resignation through the council. And finally, is resignation timing an issue? And if so, how does this affect your decision in terms of accepting or rejecting a resignation? David, I think you're up.
Okay, and unfortunately I will take the mantle as being the one that started a very bad precedent in this town, because prior to my resignation I couldn't recall of another one from the council, and so it was a little troubling to see that pattern repeated, and I almost felt I had some personal responsibility in it, because that was one of my jokes to the other councilors. When things would get tough, I'd say, hey, you could always quit, you know. But the thing is that it is appropriate when your family comes first, and that's all there is to that. And that was my situation, and there's no more needs to be said about that. Any person that doesn't put their family before everything else in their life, I'm sorry, is derelict in their first duty as a father. The terms of acceptance, again, if there's a legitimate reason why someone says they can't serve any longer, either because of work requirements or other things like that, you know, there is a time, granted, it's a duty. I take this seriously as a civic duty. And when I resigned, I did wait until there was an election to try to fill my spot. And I went out and tried to find people to fill my spot. It was sad that it was only 15 votes. One of them was mine for the person that filled my spot. I was sorry to hear that. And I think a lot of it stems from abuse by people toward the council members, towards planning board members, and other members in the town governments, is that because it's easy to tear things down. It's very easy to throw rocks at things, but it's hard to build something. And so I find that troubling when that happens. And that's one of the reasons that, again, I bring a calm spirit to the council. As far as timing issues, well, I kind of addressed that. I think it's proper that if someone is going to resign, if it's at all possible, they should coordinate with the next election so that people can pick someone instead of having an appointment by the council be made, because then it's really political. It's not fair.
Thank you. Mark?
Well, I would agree with Mr. Ross that any family issue would take precedence over anything else. If somebody says they need to resign for personal reasons, there really shouldn't be a question about that. You shouldn't really need to ask them why. If it's for personal reasons and a legitimate personal reason, we would have to accept that as a council. If we were to vote our motion to accept the resignation, I personally can't see where I would reject a resignation under those circumstances. That's somebody's personal decision. It is a volunteer position after all. Yes, there is a stipend, but we don't run for the money primarily. I'm speaking for myself. The money is not why we do this. And so is resignation an issue? Sure, because it affects the overall flow of the policy board government, and there is a disruption in that, and for whatever short period of time that is not being resolved, it typically takes about 30 days to find a replacement, and sometimes more in that, so that does become an issue, and hopefully the board moves on very quickly to resolve that, and hopefully comes up with their motions appropriately before they can find another replacement. I also take myself very seriously when anything I take in town here, and I don't intend to resign. I have never missed a meeting that I've ever been assigned to go to, that I've been incumbent upon being at or chaired. I've never missed a meeting in town, and I don't plan to lose any of that perfect attendance at this point either. Does that answer your questions, I believe?
Well,
Resignation is a time issue.
Resignation is a timing issue. Yes, it can be if a resignation is a timing issue whereby if somebody
Now you're out of
resigned.
time.